For my part, I consider that it is better to be adventurous than cautious.
There is a strange contradiction in this world that is difficult to ignore. Sometimes the most intelligent person in the room is also the person with the least money in that room. Someone can read dozens of books every year, understand economics better than almost everyone around them, analyze human behavior, follow markets closely, and still worry about surviving until the end of the month. Meanwhile, someone who was never considered the brightest student in school can end up owning a company years later. One gathers knowledge, the other gathers results. One keeps getting ready, the other is already playing the game. And this is where the uncomfortable part begins. The difference between these two people may have much less to do with intelligence than you imagine. Maybe you have been repeating the same pattern for years. I will begin when I understand more. I will decide after I research a little longer. I will take the risk when I feel more prepared. I will invest when the timing becomes perfect. I will build my own business when conditions finally improve. But the years continue moving. Your knowledge increases. Your ability to analyze becomes sharper. You understand people better. You understand the world better. Yet somehow, your life does not move forward at the same speed. And this is where a darker truth begins to reveal itself. Intelligence does not automatically move a person forward. Used incorrectly, intelligence can do the opposite. It can become the very chain keeping you where you already are. More than 5 centuries ago, Machiavelli watched this happen repeatedly while studying power, conflict, ambition, and human nature. Some people were extremely intelligent. They noticed everything. They calculated every danger. They understood people. They could predict consequences. But when the moment finally came to move, they hesitated. Then someone less informed, less prepared, but more willing to act stepped into the empty space. And what happened? Power did not move toward the person who knew the most. It moved toward the person who acted when the moment appeared. Today, you are going to see how intelligence can quietly become an invisible prison. There are 6 traps capable of keeping intelligent people at the same financial level for years. And what makes these traps dangerous is simple. None of them looks foolish. Quite the opposite. They look intelligent. They look responsible. They look careful. They look patient. They look like high standards. The first 3 steal opportunities. The next 3 steal something even more expensive. Your time. Your momentum. Your future. And when we reach the 5th trap, you may finally understand why some intelligent people reach 40 and realize they are still standing almost exactly where they began. So, let us begin with the first trap, because this may be the trap you have been calling responsibility for years. The research cage. You notice an opportunity, maybe an investment, maybe a new business model, maybe a skill that could increase your income, maybe an idea that has been sitting quietly inside your mind for months. Something inside you becomes excited. You think, this might actually work. Then the intelligent part of your mind enters the conversation, and it says, research a little first. That sounds reasonable. So you begin. You watch videos, you read articles, you listen to experts, you study the advantages, then you discover the disadvantages. You identify a risk, you search for a solution, then you find another method. Now you compare both methods. You take notes, you build a table, you save another video, you open another article. Then someone appears and tells you the entire method is wrong. So you return to the beginning. You change the plan, you improve the plan, you create another plan. 2 weeks disappear, then 2 months, then 6 months. And here is what makes this trap so powerful. During all of this, you don't feel lazy, you feel productive. Your mind is busy, you are learning, your notebook is filling, your bookmarks are multiplying, your saved videos are increasing. You are exhausted,
But reality has not moved. Nothing outside your mind has changed. That is the genius of the research cage. It disguises inaction as progress. You feel like someone running for hours on a treadmill. Your heart is working. You are sweating. You are using energy. But when you finally look around, you are standing in exactly the same place. Now imagine another person sees the same opportunity. They have not researched as deeply as you. They do not understand every detail. They are not an expert. They even misunderstand several things in the beginning. But eventually they say, I know enough to take the first step. So, they begin. They make a small investment. They contact the first customer. They publish the first offer. They launch the first product. They attend the first meeting. And naturally, they make mistakes. But this is exactly where the difference becomes important. You try to solve mistakes inside your head before they exist. They encounter mistakes in reality and correct them. 1 month later, they have data. You have theory. 6 months later, they have experience. You have a more sophisticated plan. 3 years later, they have already learned through reality some of the lessons you're only beginning to study. Not because they were more intelligent, because they entered the game sooner. Now, be honest with yourself. What are you postponing most right now? Investing? Starting a business? Learning a valuable skill? Making an important decision? Write one word in the comments. And keep that word in your mind as we continue, because one of these 6 traps may be standing directly between you and that decision. Most people assume the cost of excessive research is only a few lost months. It is not. The real cost is time. Imagine investing a small amount every month. The money invested earliest receives the longest period to grow. So when you say, I will start 3 years later, you are not merely losing 3 years. You are losing the earliest 3 years. The years with the greatest amount of future in front of them. And once those years disappear, you cannot purchase them again. You can earn more money. You can discover another opportunity. You can replace a lost customer. You can rebuild a business. But yesterday cannot be bought back. Machiavelli understood something important about fortune. Fortune often favors the person moving toward opportunity, not the person studying it forever from a safe distance. Because opportunities do not promise to wait until you feel ready. Markets move, people move, competitors move, time moves. Research can protect you. But eventually, protection can become hiding. And sometimes what you call careful thinking is simply fear wearing intelligent clothes. Learn to recognize that line. Study, research, understand the danger, but give the decision a deadline. Do not make the goal of research knowing everything. You will never reach that point. Make the goal a decision. Give yourself 3 days. Give yourself 1 week. Gather what matters. Understand enough, then move. Do not wait until you feel ready. Because readiness usually does not create action. Action creates readiness. But even after escaping the research cage, another trap appears. And this one is more difficult to notice, because now fear will disguise itself as pride. The second trap, the reputation trap. Some intelligent people quietly reject opportunities that can make them money. They rarely admit why, but their behavior reveals it. I cannot do sales. I cannot message strangers. I cannot waste time on small jobs. I did not study for something like this. That is beneath me. At first, this sounds like standards, and sometimes it is. But sometimes standards are simply armor protecting the ego. Because starting small is dangerous, not necessarily to your finances, to your identity. If everyone around you has always known you as the intelligent one, becoming a beginner feels uncomfortable. You do not want to look inexperienced. You do not want to fail publicly. You do not want to ask a basic question. You do not want someone to reject you. You do not want a customer to say no. You do not want people to discover that you are not automatically good at everything. So, you protect your pride. And without realizing it, you trade growth for comfort. Now imagine another person. They cannot afford to protect their ego. They need money. So they accept a sales job. Every day they speak with strangers. People ignore them. People reject them. People hang up. Messages receive no answer. Offers fail. The first weeks are painful. Their ego takes hit after hit. But 6 months later, something has changed. They understand which words create attention. They know when to speak. They know when to stay silent. They understand objections. They understand listening. They understand how value must be communicated. They begin learning human psychology not from theory, but from actual human beings. 1 year later, they may leave sales completely, but they carry something valuable with them: persuasion. And persuasion is much larger than selling a product. It is negotiating your salary. It is raising capital. It is forming partnerships. It is convincing a team. It is presenting an idea. It is communicating your value. It is influencing decisions inside a room. Money moves through people. Opportunity moves through people. Relationships move resources. People open doors. That is why building wealth without learning how people think is extremely difficult. But this is where an intelligent person's ego can become an obstacle. I should not have to prove myself, but reality does not care. Nobody can see the value hidden inside your mind. The world can only respond to the value you make visible. For Machiavelli, outcomes mattered more than private intentions. The world does not reward your hidden potential. It responds to demonstrated value. So every week, deliberately do one thing that makes your ego slightly uncomfortable. Contact someone you do not know. Make an offer. Ask for something. Present your idea. Enter a situation where rejection is possible. You may experience discomfort for 5 minutes, but that small discomfort may purchase years of future freedom. People who continually escape short-term embarrassment often create long-term regret. And eventually, when you finally break through your ego and say, "Fine, I am going to build something," another trap appears. This trap especially loves talented people because it uses one of their greatest strengths against them: perfection. The third trap, the perfect plan illusion. You have an idea. This time you genuinely believe in it. Maybe you even think it could change your life. And because the idea matters, you do not want to execute it badly. The website should look professional. The logo should be perfect. The price should be correct. The product should feel complete. The system should work smoothly. Every competitor should be analyzed. Every possibility should be considered. Again, it sounds responsible. Then you notice one flaw. You correct it. Another problem appears. You fix that. You show the project to someone. They identify another weakness. You change everything again. Weeks disappear, then months. And eventually you realize something strange. Not one real person has used what you created. Meanwhile, what did your competitor do? They started with something worse. Their website was average. Their branding was ordinary. Their system had problems. Their first product was incomplete. Customers complained. Things broke. But there was one major difference. They had customers. Real customers. And that changes everything. You can spend 1,000 hours imagining what a customer wants. Another person can discover the answer in 10 minutes by speaking to one. The first customer complains. They fix something. The second customer asks for another feature. They add it. The third says the price is too high. They adjust the offer. After 10 customers, the product has changed. After 100 customers, it barely resembles the first version. While you are still perfecting version 1.0 inside your room, reality has already taught your competitor version 15.0. The market can be brutal, but it is honest. Your plan shows what you believe should work. Reality reveals what actually works. That difference matters. So stop trying to release perfection. Release the first version of functions.
The version one person can buy. The version one person can test. The version capable of receiving real feedback. Until your idea touches reality, it remains only an assumption inside your mind. And understand something else. The perfect plan illusion does not appear only in entrepreneurship. It appears everywhere. You postpone a 20-minute task for 3 days because you are waiting for the correct moment. You delay a phone call for 2 weeks. You wait until the final day to send an application. Before beginning a project, you organize your desk. You organize your folders. You download another productivity app. You redesign your planning system. You create categories. You build schedules. And somehow the real work remains untouched. When you catch yourself doing this, use one rule. Make the task smaller. Finish the draft, not the masterpiece. Send the first message. Do not worry about finding the first customer yet. Create the first offer, not the entire company. Write the first page, not the whole book. Because inaction grows when goals feel enormous. Action grows when the next move feels small. So far, we have seen 3 traps. Research kept you preparing. Pride kept you protected. Perfection kept you outside the market. But the 4th trap works differently, because this one makes hesitation feel like maturity. The 4th trap, the disease of neutrality. Life is not made only of ideas. Life is made of people. And whenever people are involved, conflict eventually appears. A partner breaks a promise. An employee crosses a line. A friend damages your trust. A customer repeatedly takes advantage of you. A relationship begins consuming your energy. Now a decision must be made. But an intelligent mind has a special difficulty. It can understand both sides. You can see why the other person acted that way. You can recognize your own mistakes. You can imagine what happens if you speak. You can imagine what happens if you remain silent. One voice says, "End it." Another says, "Wait." One side says, "Say no." The other says, "Maybe things will improve." And because you can understand every possibility, you choose none of them. You call it patience. You call it empathy. You call it maturity. You call it being thoughtful. But sometimes the real word is indecision. Then the months pass. The problem becomes larger. A partnership loses more money. An employee pushes further. A relationship takes more energy. A disrespectful person becomes more comfortable. Because unresolved problems rarely disappear. They adapt to your tolerance. Machiavelli understood how dangerous permanent neutrality could become, especially during conflict. A neutral person may believe neutrality protects them. But after the conflict ends, both sides may ask the same thing. Where did you really stand? There is a similar truth in ordinary life. You do not need to choose sides in every argument, but you cannot remain neutral about your boundaries. You cannot remain neutral about your time. You cannot remain neutral about your dignity. You cannot remain neutral about your future. Yes, making a decision creates the possibility of being wrong, but refusing to decide is also a decision. And often it gives someone else permission to decide the outcome for you. A bad decision can be corrected. Lost money can be earned again. A harmful partnership can be ended. A wrong direction can be changed. But years lost because you refuse to decide are much harder to recover. And this takes us directly to the 5th trap. Perhaps the most ruthless trap of all. Because the first 4 slow your progress. This one can allow your entire life to pass while you barely notice. The 5th trap, the compound growth gap. Imagine 20 years passing. 2 people begin at the same age. Neither has much money. Neither has powerful connections. Neither begins with enormous capital. The first person waits. They wait for their salary to increase. They wait for markets to become clearer. They wait for debt to shrink. They wait for the perfect investment. They wait to understand more. Soon, they say. Then I will begin. The second person begins small. Their first investment looks insignificant. Their first business earns almost nothing. Their first customers are small. Their progress is unimpressive. But they continue.
1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. Then you look at both lives. They no longer look similar. One person still depends almost completely on the hours they personally work. The other has investments, maybe a business, maybe systems, maybe employees, maybe property, maybe several sources of income. But more important than any asset, they possess something else: options. The option to reject work they hate. The option to survive without a salary for a long period. The option to spend time with their family. The option to travel. The option to leave a bad environment. The option to wake up without immediately selling the entire day. Sometimes the most valuable part of wealth is not money. It is control. And control rarely appears overnight. It accumulates, slowly, quietly, year after year. But here's the problem. Compound growth looks boring at the beginning. The first year may barely change anything. The second year may not look much different. And this is where people become impatient. They stop because they cannot see the result. But compounding was never designed to impress you early. In the beginning, it whispers. Then the curve begins to rise. And eventually the person who started late realizes something painful. They do not only need to close a financial gap. They must close a time gap. And time is far less forgiving than money. Tomorrow your income could double. But yesterday cannot double. You cannot purchase another 10 years and place them behind you. That is why the mathematics of wealth does not always care who is more intelligent. It rewards early movement. It rewards repetition. It rewards consistency. It rewards patient action. One person begins with a small amount at 25. Another begins with much larger amounts at 45. The second person may earn more. They may know more. They may understand investing better. But the first person possesses something powerful. 20 extra years, time. And time does not care how intelligent either person is. It keeps moving. Now return to Machiavelli for a moment. There's an interesting irony here. Machiavelli analyzed human nature, strategy, conflict, and power with extraordinary depth. Centuries later, his name is still associated with strategic thinking. But understanding something and turning that understanding into better conditions in your own life are completely different things. And that leaves us with an uncomfortable lesson. Knowing how something works does not guarantee that you will win. You can explain wealth. You can analyze markets. You can discuss interest rates. You can understand business models. You can identify other people's mistakes instantly. You can explain exactly why someone else failed, and still fail to apply any of that knowledge yourself. Imagine yourself at 50. Someone you considered less knowledgeable than you for years is sitting peacefully in their garden during the afternoon. They are not checking their phone every 5 minutes. They are not waiting for their boss to answer. They are not counting the days until salary arrives. Their schedule belongs to them. They can decide where to go. They can decide what to do. Meanwhile, you are awake at midnight winning an argument online. You explain why the economic system is unfair. You explain why successful people had advantages. You explain why markets behave irrationally. You explain why your analysis is correct. And maybe you are correct. Maybe every sentence is true. But eventually the argument ends. The screen becomes dark, and your life remains exactly where it was before the argument began. That is when a painful realization may appear. Being correct and being free are not the same thing. But this future is not inevitable. You are still here, which is exactly why the sixth trap matters. Because the sixth trap contains the exit. Its name is redirection. The answer is not to become less intelligent. It is not to stop reading. It is not to stop learning. It is certainly not to become ignorant. You do not need to destroy your intelligence. You need to change its assignment. Think about how you have been using your mind until now. To detect risk, to identify flaws, to imagine failure, to compare every possible choice, to produce another reason to wait. Now give that same intelligence a different mission. Find the next move. Instead of asking, why might this fail? Ask, how can I test it cheaply? Instead of asking, what if I fail? Ask, if I fail, how quickly can I correct the mistake? Instead of asking, do I know everything? Ask, do I know enough to begin? Because the purpose of thinking is not endless thinking. The purpose of thinking is better action. So now let us make this practical. The first tool, the 24-hour rule. Choose something you have delayed for a long time. Then, within the next 24 hours, take one action that creates a consequence in the real world. Not research, not another video, not another notebook page, not another plan. Action. Message one person. Send one application. Build one offer. Make one small investment. Call one customer. Publish one page. Create something reality can answer. The second tool, make the steps smaller. When a goal frightens you, the mind is often looking at something too large. I am going to build a company feels heavy. Today I will message one possible customer feels manageable. I am going to become an investor sounds enormous. This week I will make one small investment is concrete. I am going to write a book feels overwhelming. Today I will write 300 words is possible. And if you continue producing excuses, shrink the task again. Keep making it smaller until avoiding it requires more effort than doing it. The third tool, do the difficult thing first. Most people wake up and immediately move toward easy tasks. They check messages, they read emails, they complete small things. Their brain receives several tiny rewards. Then the difficult task finally arrives. But by then, their best attention is already gone. Reverse the order. Take your first serious victory of the day from the task you most want to avoid. Make the call. Send the offer. Open the document. Begin the conversation. Start the work that creates discomfort. Do this repeatedly and eventually, something deeper than your behavior changes. Your identity changes. You stop saying, I am trying to become disciplined. You begin saying, I am someone who acts. That is transformation. Not one heroic day, not one burst of motivation. Action becoming normal. And now I want to ask you another question. Think before you answer. If you could stop postponing only one thing today, what exact action would you take? Write the action in the comments. Not, I will begin. Write something real. I will contact a customer. I will open the investment account. I will send the application. I will tell them my price. I will publish the project. I will make the call. Because once a thought becomes specific, it stops hiding comfortably inside your mind. It becomes real. Now understand something important. The person you have been comparing yourself with throughout this video was probably never stupid. They may have been intelligent too. They simply used their intelligence differently. While you mastered understanding the world, they practiced moving through it. While you predicted possible mistakes, they learned how to recover from actual mistakes. While you waited for perfect conditions, they learned how to operate inside imperfect ones. And the strongest people eventually combine both sides. They think deeply, but they decide. They research, but they begin. They understand danger, but danger does not freeze them. They make mistakes, but mistakes do not become their identity. They adjust, they continue, they move, because the world is not shaped only by the people who observe it. It responds to the people who participate in it. By now, something may already have appeared inside your mind. A decision you have delayed. Maybe the investment you have studied for months. Maybe the business you keep imagining. Maybe the service whose price you are afraid to say aloud. Maybe the position you have not applied for. Maybe the difficult conversation you know must happen. Maybe the habit you know must disappear. Maybe the door you already know needs to close. Do not lose that thought, because the 10 minutes after this video ends, may be more valuable than the entire video, but only if you act during those 10 minutes. At the beginning, I asked why highly intelligent people sometimes fall behind financially. Now the answer should be clearer. The problem was never intelligence itself. The problem was the small distance between intelligence and action, the distance between understanding and doing. Many people spend decades trapped inside that distance. They know what needs to happen, but they do not act. They know what must end, but they do not end it. They know what they need to begin, but they keep waiting. Then another year disappears, then another. And eventually the gap between what they know and the life they actually live becomes enormous. You do not have to follow that path. Do not finish this video with nothing more than motivation. Motivation disappears quickly. Tomorrow, you may forget half of what you heard, but action leaves evidence. The message you sent remains. The application you submitted remains. The account you opened remains. The conversation you finally had remains. The project you started remains. One small action creates another, then another, then another. That is how momentum forms. Life rarely changes because of one enormous dramatic moment. More often, it changes because the direction of small actions changes. That is the truth. Your intelligence may show you how far you could go, but your actions determine how far you actually go. Not everyone ahead of you is smarter than you. Some simply started while you were still preparing. They sold while you analyzed. They practiced while you researched. They learned while you waited. They failed while you tried to eliminate every possibility of failure. They corrected mistakes while you searched for perfection. And while you continued thinking about step 1, they reached step 100. But understand this, the race is not finished. You cannot change the years already gone, but you can stop sacrificing the years that come next. And sometimes the thing capable of changing a person's direction is not another piece of information. It is not another theory. It is not even another decision. It is taking the first real action behind a decision you already made long ago. If this story changed the way you see intelligence, money, power, and action, do not leave the lesson here, because what we have discussed about wealth, psychology, strategy, human behavior, and control is only the surface. Most people collect information. Then they return to the same life. A smaller group does something different. They convert what they hear into behavior. Every video on this channel is designed to sharpen the way you think, reveal patterns most people overlook, and help you become not merely someone who understands the game, but someone capable of playing it. So if you want more content like this, subscribe to the channel. But do not subscribe and immediately return to your old routine. Take the step you wrote in the comments. Because whether this video actually helped you will not be proven by the number of likes it receives. It will be proven by what you do next. Most people will close the video. They will feel inspired for several minutes. Then they will return to the same habits. But a smaller group will close the screen and immediately do something. One message, one call, one offer, one application, one conversation, one decision, one beginning. And several years from now, the lives of those two groups may look completely different. Choose now which group you are going to belong to.